Okay, we're live on YouTube. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Tori now.
Okay.
Okay. Per the State of California Executive Order N-2920, this meeting is being held telephonically. All public comment were received by either email or voicemail as noted in the agenda. Commissioners, if you would please mute your microphones till called upon for comment or vote. Now I will let Chairperson White open the meeting.
Okay, we'll call the meeting to order. Let's have the roll call.
Chairperson White.
Present.
Vice Chairperson Christensen.
Present.
Commissioner Wright.
Present.
Commissioner Hollinsworth.
Present.
Commissioner Nixon. Commissioner Nixon is absent. Thank you.
Okay, we'll start with the pledge. I usually do that, but since we've been doing these phone calls, but Daryl, would you lead us in the pledge?
Be glad to. Find the flag. I have one handy for me already. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, is everyone still there? They got quiet. Okay, so
Still here.
Yep.
Okay, the first item on the agenda is the consent agenda. So all items listed with an asterisk are considered to be routine and non-controversial by city staff. The consent items will be considered first and may be approved by one motion if no member of the council or public wishes to comment or ask questions. Comment or discussion is desired by anyone, the item will be removed from the consent agenda and will be considered in listed sequence with an opportunity for any member of the public to address the Planning Commission concerning the item before the action taken. Were there any public comments regarding consent agenda items to be removed?
No comments were received, voicemail or email.
Okay, well, I'm going to do a roll call now for the commissioners. Are there any consent items that you would like to be removed? Christensen?
None.
Wright?
None.
Hollingsworth?
None.
And I have none to be removed. Okay. So now we will take a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented. Is there a motion?
Daryl moved.
Linda second.
Moved and seconded. So now we will take a roll call vote. If you approve, Christensen?
Aye.
Wright?
Aye.
Hollinsworth?
Yes.
And I vote yes. So let the record show that it was a unanimous vote for approval of the consent agenda. Next item on the agenda is the audience oral and written communications per the State of California, Executive Order N-2920. Were there any public comments?
We did not receive any public comments by voicemail or email.
Okay, we'll move on then to item 5, the Plan Development number 2018-01 amendment number 3 for Sage Ranch. This is to approve an extension of Plan Development number 2018-01 amendment number 3 of 3, or 6 months for project applicant to complete the environmental impact report and final master development plan. Who is going to give the staff report?
This is Jay Schlosser, Development Director. I'll give the staff report tonight.
Okay, good. Go ahead.
Very good. Thank you. As you noted, this is the planned unit development or plan development number 2018-01. This is amendment number 3, a request from the developer for an additional 6-month extension on the project timeline. Just as a reminder or summary of the action, the planned unit development process as outlined in the zoning code does have timelines associated with it between the various actions taken before the Planning Commission or the City Council. And so if you're unable to take those actions within time, you either need to explain it or they result in the ending or termination of the development project. So tonight, staff is recommending that the Planning Commission approve an extension of Plan Development Number 2018-01, Amendment Number 3 for a 3-month extension of the project in order to allow us and the applicant to complete the environmental impact report and final master development plan. For additional information, the authorization guidelines are listed in the Tehachapi Zoning Code Section 3.30.160. And I'll not, in your staff report, you'll see we used our standard staff report, so I'm not going to, no public notice is necessary, no environmental review associated with this action. The project background hasn't changed since you guys have last seen this. I did include a copy of the applicant letter from Ms. Hagan representing the project group requesting the 6-month extension. As far as analysis goes, this is where we have something to talk about because there's an obvious difference between the applicant's request for 6 months and our suggestion of 3 months. And so to remind everybody listening and you all that you guys originally approved the preliminary development plan in February of 2019. And according to our codes, you are required to submit the final master development plan, which is the next step in this process, within 6 months of that preliminary approval. In this case, I believe we informed you guys at the outset that we didn't think the 6 month was a reasonable timeline because of the expected CEQA environmental impact report for a project of this size would likely alone exceed this timeline, and it has. And to that end, you all extended or amended the project initially in August of 2019, granting an additional 6-month timeline. And then again in April of 2020, you extended it again. Now, April is when it occurred, but that extension was retroactive to February for an additional 6-month timeline. That brings the timeline conclusion to this month. And so the applicant is doing their job and is on top of the timeline and put in a request in a timely manner for an additional extension. Again, that's what's noted in your staff report is the applicant has requested 6 months. Our recommendation for 3 months, which I would tell you I hold loosely. We really are okay here at staff with it being either being 3 month or 6 month. Our thoughts for 3 months are an attempt to balance the needs of the project, the needs being the completion of the EIR as well as the completion of the project components. And to give you a brief update, the final EIR has been drafted and reviewed already twice by staff and is now in the hands of the developer. And so I am of the opinion that the final EIR is within 30 days of completion, notwithstanding any discussions we might have to have with the applicant to get it there. We do still have a number of outstanding action items on the master plan that still need to be worked through. And so I think that action item is probably the primary reason why we have a differing opinion about how much additional time is needed. The position I've given to the Sage Ranch team is that I feel like we can get the project ready in the next 3 months. The reason I hold it loosely, one of their objections, and I do believe there may be some correspondence on this issue, and Toy will read that for you in a minute, is A, concerns over COVID and a desire to bring this project to an open planning commission, not this teleconference version, which may not be achievable in the next 3 months. And then their concerns that they just may not get all the pieces of the final master plan together in that time. I will, to their credit, there's no question that we're all working diligently on this. The code provides these timelines in order to ensure that developers don't get an initial approval and then sit on it with no intention of furthering the project. That is not the case here. We are definitely making progress and frankly, spending huge amounts of time in the last several months progressing this project to a place where we can deliver it to you all. So with that, I've told the applicant as well that if we just aren't there at 3 months or 90 days from now, that I would support a further extension. They would prefer, I believe, to have a 6-month extension. And so that's the background that I've got for you. And your available options are to approve the extension at 90 days, to approve the extension at 6 months, or to deny the extension of the project entirely, which would result in termination of the project. And so with that, that concludes my staff report.
Okay, thank you. So now, was there any public comment on that, Tori?
Yes, we did receive 2 public comments. I will read the first one. Ms. March, the following comments are being submitted on behalf of Greenbrier Capital regarding agenda item number 5 on this evening's Planning Commission agenda. If you could please confirm receipt of this email, I would appreciate it. Thank you. Greenbrier Capital, as a developer of the Sage Ranch project, is currently processing entitlement applications relative to subdividing and developing 138 acres of vacant land with a mix of single-family and multifamily residential units. The project will result in the addition of 1,000 housing units at build-out, which will generally aid in addressing the housing deficiency in this region and more specifically benefit the underserved housing needs of the aviation and military defense business sectors working in Mojave and Antelope Valley. This project will also attract seniors and young families to the new home market with pricing that is commensurate with the average housing prices in Tehachapi. Additionally, the project will generate $300 million in construction-related jobs and a $3 million annual increase to the city's tax base and an increase of $1.5 million in monthly consumer spending in the downtown Tehachapi area. A project of this magnitude and quality requires the expertise of multiple professional disciplines. Greenbrier has convened a team of highly regarded experts to work on the project, including the world-renowned architects and designers of JZMK Partners. Since approval of the preliminary development plan, the Sage Ranch team has been working tirelessly to address each of the various project components in an effort to complete the final master development plan, the FMDP. That will come back to this Planning Commission for consideration along with the final Environmental Impact Report, EIR. The EIR, which has been circulated for public review, was only completed by the city's consultant and returned to us for review last week. Accordingly, we have not had a meaningful opportunity to evaluate the scope of city's responses to public comments received or the extent to which the EIR was revised as a result. As the lead agency responsible for preparing the EIR, it is undoubtedly in the city's as well as the developer's interest to ensure that a complete and thorough review of the project's potential impacts is completed. Moreover, we are still in the midst of discussing and exchanging feedback with city staff on multiple project elements, including but not limited to design guidelines, the tentative track map, the HOA budget, and corresponding CC&Rs, the landscape design plan, conditions of approval, and right-of-way acquisition. Completion of these tasks will require the diligence of both the Sage Ranch team and city staff. To that end, the parties are currently working towards scheduling a meeting to discuss outstanding issues and identify those tasks that have yet to be completed in connection with processing the entitlement applications. While we are committed to working with the city to achieve completion of all project components in a timely manner, we are not certain that 90 days will be sufficient time within which complete the remaining tasks. It is Greenbrier's desire and in its best interest to bring this project back to the Planning Commission and City Council for consideration as soon as possible. However, we simply cannot realistically guarantee that we will be able to do so in the next 90 days. To ensure that we have adequate time to complete all elements of the FMDP and to avoid needlessly coming back to the Planning Commission to seek an additional extension, Greenbrier is requesting a 6-month extension as opposed to a 3-month extension as proposed by city staff. We are also asking for a 6-month extension in light of our strong preference the project not be brought back before you for consideration until such time that members of the Sage Ranch team are permitted to participate in the hearing in real time, including being available to answer commissioner questions, as is dictated by due process principles. All things considered, this seems far more likely to be achievable within a 6-month as opposed to a 3-month time period, because it appears unlikely that COVID-19 will have been sufficiently suppressed in 3 months' time to permit the resumption of face-to-face meetings by the Planning Commission or the City Council. Based on the foregoing, it is respectfully requested that the Planning Commission grant Greenbrier's request for an additional 6-month extension to process the FMDP, with the understanding that we will bring the project back before the Planning Commission for consideration as soon as possible and prior to expiration of the 6th month if we are able to do so. Sincerely, Kristen A. Hagan, Esquire. I also received the exact same letter, so I will not reread it, but it came from Marty Pay Farmers Insurance Agency. He is the chairman of Sage Ranch Advisory Board. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think now we will go for the commissioner's comments, and we'll do that by roll call. We'll start with Vice Chairperson Christensen. Any comments, questions?
Yeah, I do have a few. Thank you, Chairman White. For the Sage Ranch, my pre-meeting my pre-meeting review notes, I did wondered why the 6 months as opposed to, or 3 months, 90 days opposed to 6. Jay, you answered that very well. I appreciate that. Before hearing the letter, I was still kind of in the mode to say, well, shouldn't we push it to 6? So from staff, can we approve for 90 days with staff's discretion to extend another 90 days with the project termination thereafter? Is that you gave us 3 options: 30, 90, or no?
Yeah, I think.
I'm sorry, 90, 6 months or no.
Yeah, understood. I've been getting it confused in my own head a bunch in the last week. Probably, I don't know that there's anything meaningfully gained there, Commissioner Christensen. The only reason being that to terminate this project is not something that should be left in the discretion of staff. And so if we get to 90 days and say you guys give us some kind of modified approval where it gives us discretion to extend it, the only benefit there would be that if we get to 90 days and no progress is being made, you would basically be inviting staff to come back to the Planning Commission and go, okay, we hit 90 days, nothing's happening, we want you to terminate this project. If you grant me the discretion to go up to 6 months, then it just puts us in a weird spot to take that action. Because you would be effectively saying tonight that you're okay with it going to 6 months as long as I'm okay with it going to 6 months. And while I appreciate the discretion that you would be giving me in that moment, and I think that's what your intent is, I'm not sure it gives us anything that avoids a revisit in 90 days or in 6 months. And truly, upon contemplating this issue between the time we published and tonight, Ms. Hagan's point about COVID, I think, is the one that impacts me the most. I do think that we can get this project done in the next 90 days, but I'm in strong agreement with her that we ought to only hear this in an open session, or at least in some kind of forum in which they can participate, and frankly that the public can participate. That's probably not going to happen in 90 days. And so that's why I'm telling you that, staff's position is that we're okay with 90 days, we're okay with 6 months, but we'd like to let you guys make that, not let you, we want you to make that decision.
Okay, maybe discretion was the incorrect word I used. I think where I was heading is go with staff's recommendation of the 90 days, but have the ability for staff to say, okay, we missed the 90, we'll extend it another 90 days, but if you miss that milestone, the project is terminated. So not, I guess discretionary means you can or won't do it. I was looking at saying, hey, here's 90, allowing them to go 6 months if need be, but then letting them know it will be terminated after that. So we don't keep revisiting this.
Yeah, I see your distinction. I think that's an acceptable solution to staff at this stage. I don't. Yeah, I'm not sure that if I can guess. I've been speaking a lot or communicating a lot with Ms. Hagan that I would think that she would hold fast to her belief that pure 6 months would be what they prefer. So, but if that's fine. I think that's okay with. That would be fine. Here's the bottom line, though. We're going to bring this back to you, and I think this is the point she's making. We're going to bring it back to you as soon as it's ready, hopefully well under the 6 months. So I don't know that discretionary move lights any additional fire. Does that make sense? The argument in favor of 90 days is we want everybody to get moving. We want to get this done. We want to get it put together and ready to go. But if the termination threat is still out there at 6 months, the only thing this does is keeps them from going silent on us in the next 90 days and doing nothing on this project. I don't think that's very likely. Us and them have been actively working on this project, so I think that's a pretty limited concern.
Okay, and that does make sense. I mean, even in my own business, I always say, nothing gets done until the last day anyway. Just to get me clear on this, project termination, 90 days, 60 days, are we looking at terminating the project after that? Is that staff's, that's what I'm kind of getting from staff is, hey, we're going to extend it this one last time and then termination of the project? And if so, what does termination of the project basically mean?
Yeah, good question. The answer is that the previous extensions staff has supported because in this relationship we have with Greenbrier, it is the city's obligation to deliver the CEQA document, and it is Greenbrier's obligation to deliver the completed master plan. The previous extensions we have supported without hesitation because the CEQA document still needed much more time. So I think 6 months from now or 90 days from now, whichever of the two you guys choose tonight or something else, my belief is that the CEQA document will be ready by then with some extra grace period. And so at that point, all the quote-unquote proverbial balls are in their court to get the other pieces of this project done. I don't want to predict that staff would recommend termination, but instead say to you that our codes do look to the applicant to move a project forward once they get an initial approval. And so staff is probably going to decide whether an extension is warranted at that time if we get to that place based upon whether we feel like the project can move forward or not. If the applicant is not working with us to solve the remaining problems on the project, then that might advocate for us to just say, look, it's time to bring the project as is to the Planning Commission and tell them our two respective positions and let them decide. And if they don't want to do that and yet don't want to move the project forward, then I suppose staff hypothetically could be in a position to say, look, there's no reason to keep moving forward or to keep extending the time. Alternatively, there may be some legitimate issues that are still being addressed 6 months from now, and staff may say and come to you and want to present those issues to you and request additional time to deal with them. So that answers that question.
Actually, that's a great segue to my last question,
okay.
Which you may or may not answer. I'm giving you the out if you don't want to answer. In staff's opinion, is this problem that we're having, is this kind of indicative that there might be other catastrophic problems down the road that the commission or staff needs to worry about? If they keep asking for time here, I just don't want this project. Everybody drives by the high school. Once that project is started, it's going to be very visible to the community. I don't want it to be a half-baked project that gets abandoned halfway through.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm working actively to avoid, Commissioner. I think my answer to you is no. The staff is still conceptually in the same place we were in back in February of 2019, which is you should approve this project on its merits, on what it intends to construct. Or at least that's preliminarily what we suggested you do, subject, of course, to getting all the details together. we're working through, there's a lot. I mean, it's a huge project, and so there's a lot of work to be done. We are making progress. And so, no, I'm not in a position right now where I would say to you guys that I'm concerned. My belief is that we can pull this together and deliver to you a project that staff recommends approval for. That's where I think this is going. We've had some challenges along the way and some stuff to deal with, and we're still dealing with it, but I can positively report that we are making progress. In the last couple of months, we've exchanged a lot of information, and we have put some issues to bed. And Ms. Hagan is accurate in her letter to you. We are working on what will hopefully be a pretty major and meaningful meeting to kind of set the final pieces in place to deliver a completed project. So hope that answers your question.
It does, staff. Thank you very much. Chairman White, I'm done.
Okay, thank you. We'll go to Commissioner Wright now. Do you have any comments or questions?
I'm just wondering. I've been trying to figure out how to put this. Is there a reason staff can think of, like a real good, solid reason not to give them the 6-month extension? Only because I know with getting anything done in other organizations right now with COVID going on, it's just next to impossible to get anything handled. So is there a real good reason not to just go with the 6-month extension there, Jay?
Yeah, great question. And the answer is COVID related. Let me put it to you, but with COVID happening the way it's happening, especially with what the governor rolled out with today, this is why my verbal report to you tonight maybe differs a little bit from the staff report in saying to you that staff is okay with choosing the 6-month item. If COVID were not happening at all, my argument to you would be this. We've been working on the final master plan since February of 2019, and if CEQA is no longer an impediment, then there is no reason that we shouldn't have already completed the remaining components of the project. That would have been my argument to you without COVID in place. But COVID has unquestionably impacted our ability to communicate with the applicant. And again, I would restate my previous statement that Ms. Hagan's point about wanting to deliver a project in some kind of open meeting has merit. And given, again, what even happened today, I don't know that that's going to happen in 90 days. In fact, I'm rather pessimistic about it happening in 90 days. And so that is why you hear me saying, give them 90, give them 6 months. Either one of those options is acceptable to staff. Does that clarify where I'm coming from?
Yeah, I'm leaning towards 6 months just because I know how difficult it is to get literally anything done right now.
Yeah, that's a valid point.
Okay, anything else, Commissioner Wright?
Nope, that was it.
Okay, thank you. We'll go to Commissioner Hollingsworth next. Any questions or comments?
I don't have any questions, and I think the two previous commissioners did ask some questions that helped clarify. I'd be inclined to go with the 6 months because I think I agree with her comment that presenting in an open meeting would be much better. And if that at all becomes possible in 6 months, and as long as staff is saying that there's no legitimate reason they see that the people have been dragging their feet, giving them that extra time to finish a project of this size seems reasonable. That's all.
Okay, thank you. I have some questions and comments. Basically, I think where we all are headed is that same question, 3 months or 6 months. And I just wanted to maybe be a little redundant in some of my questions, but I wanted to be sure the next step, will that be, as far as the commission goes, to have the EIR presented along with the final development plan, or will those be two separate meetings?
No, the intent, is to have those and the tentative track presented. Those are all three formal activities that you all make a recommendation to the City Council on. And so the concept we've been working on, frankly, for months now, is that all three of those would be delivered simultaneously to you, packaged as a single approval or denial, based upon the finished package. So, yeah.
Okay. I think we all agree that this really needs to be an in-person type of meeting. I think not only for the commissioners and the developer and his representatives to talk about these things, but also to present it to the public. I know there's a lot of public comment on this, and I just don't see that. I mean, maybe it can be done, but I just don't see that it can be done in a phone conversation. But I feel, well, one more question. If we were to approve a 6-month extension tonight, by regulations, is that the absolute end? If they haven't completed in 6 months, that it's terminated, or do we have the option of extending it again?
You have the discretion to extend it indefinitely, arguably. The provision, though, at some point, staff is going to change our tune, though, from, hey, recommending an extension to recommending that you don't extend it, and that would be because the zoning code does fairly directly imply and state that that there needs to be a timeline. And you're remembering that the final master plan is step 2 in this process. Step 3 is that each time a phase of the project moves forward, there has to be a precise development plan approved by you all and by the City Council. And there's a timeline between this final master plan approval and that first precise development plan being approved. The intent being that planned unit developments are so custom, they're effectively the vehicle in our code for allowing a custom development to be created that complies with the intent of the general plan and the zoning code. And so the intent, though, with that process is, look, if you, the applicant, are going to choose to go through this process as opposed to a conventional subdivision process, we, in turn, one of the conditions the city imposes in the zoning code on you is that you move through that process, that you don't try to get your project partially entitled and then try to find a buyer for it, or that you just decide to back burner it because you're Mr. Developer and you got 3 projects in different places and this one just isn't very important to you anymore. The whole concept is that if you're going to go through this customized process, that you're going to commit yourself to actively completing the steps and moving to the final step and building it. And so that ultimately is what's guiding staff's position on this is, once we get to a place where at least I'm feeling like, look, we've extended all reasonable business courtesy for you to get your pieces done, and we extend past that, you're going to find that staff is going to tell you, look, there's no reason to keep doing this. If they're not going to deliver the completed project so we can deliver it to you, then the zoning code looks to you to end it. So I hope that gives you a mindset of where I'm at on the issue. I don't think we're there yet. The final EIR, she's accurate in her letter, was only given to her last week. We certainly don't feel like you should terminate the project tonight, but that's why we were vacillating between the 3-month and 6-month. Honestly, I was swayed by Governor Newsom's actions today into feeling like 90 days isn't necessarily going to get us to a place where we can have an in-person meeting. Heck, I'm not even sure 6 months is going to get us there, but we'll have to kick that issue on down the road. So.
Okay, that answers that portion of my question. But I feel, and I think most of the commissioners feel, I don't want to really speak for them, but I think this is a fantastic development. I think it's great for Tehachapi, and I want to see it happen. And I know there are people, who are looking forward to it. All of the demographics that were mentioned in the letter, people who are elderly, new home buyers, people from Edwards. I just think it's a great project for Tehachapi. And as far as 3 months or 6 months, I would like to see us extended for 3 months. And the reason for that is because that means, and I'm sure that they will, easily request another 3-month extension. But I would like for us to give them 3 months, because that means that we as a commission will have to meet again in 3 months to be updated on their progress. And rather than just wait 6 months, to find out, what's happening, I'd rather have a 3-month extension. And because it's basically at the end of that 3 months, obviously, for all the reasons that were mentioned, they're not going to be ready for a major meeting, and it probably wouldn't be allowed anyway, but at least it would update us as to what's going on. And it's just a simple thing for us to say, okay, we'll extend it 3 more months at that point. So for that reason, I would like to, I guess you could call it some accountability on our part to know what's going on with it. So my feeling would be to give them a 3-month extension. Okay, so I don't know if we need to discuss whether there's any agreement on this, or does somebody just want to make a motion? What do you suggest is the best way to approach that, Jay?
I would suggest you call the question. I think we've heard, and there's been a lot of good debate. So I'd call the question and see what happens.
Okay, so I will now entertain a motion to approve the Plan Development Number 2018-01 Amendment Number 3 for either 3 or 6 months. Does someone want to make that motion?
So this is Hollinsworth. I have a question. If we're making the motion, you had recommended 3. I am in favor of 6. So what are we looking for? Are we looking for a motion one way or the other? And then
yes,
see how it
somebody
goes?
needs to make a motion.
Okay,
if somebody
well,
wants to go for 3 or somebody wants to go for 6.
I'll make a motion that we approve the 6-month extension.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second this is Ken Wright. I'll second the 6-month extension.
Okay, well, we will take a vote by roll call now on if you're in favor of the motion to approve Plan Development Number 2018-01, Amendment Number 3 for 6 months. Please say aye. So we'll start with Christensen.
Aye.
Wright.
Aye.
Hollinsworth.
Yes.
Okay, and I'll vote yes on that too. I don't have any objection to it. I just thought it might be a good way for us to get updated on it. So my vote is yes. So it's a unanimous vote.
Thank you.
Okay. The Planning Commission announcements or reports. Are there any comments from Vice Chairman Christensen?
Yeah, I do have a couple. For staff, looking at, we just got done talking about time extensions. Is it codified that the Planning Commission has to grant time extensions, or is that something that staff does just, that way it's kind of the decision-making there is out of staff's hands?
The timing issue, Commissioner Christensen, is unique to the plan development process. So a standard subdivision doesn't, there are some timelines for various actions that you all take, but this particular...
Let me interrupt. let me interrupt real quick. I'm just talking about the time extension, like coming back to the planning commission and saying, hey, we need another 6 months. Is that something that's codified, or is that something that staff can do?
No, that's the way the code reads. The applicant is required to make a request for a time extension. Technically, the way the code reads is if the applicant is asleep at the wheel or simply chooses not to communicate with us, it automatically expires at the timeline dictated in that policy. So no, there's nothing automatic about it. Usually when we're working with an applicant, though, good customer service is that we'll pick up the phone and go, hey, you're about to get expired. You want an extension? You know, like we work with those who are working with us to keep their project moving forward.
Correct. But that approval process, can that be done? The applicant comes out and says, hey, I need another 6 months. Can staff say, okay, until staff says, you know, uncle, you know, this has gone too long, let me take it to the planning commission? Or does every extension have to come to planning?
No, I'm
just trying to save staff and applicants time. That's what I'm really trying to do is just streamline the process.
I understand. No, technically no. I suppose you guys would have the authority to that would be a question for the city attorney, but you'd have the authority to delegate that permission to me or to the department. Pardon me, but no, that would have to be a formal motion on your part to ask me to do that. The codes are pretty clear that you know, because you guys are approving each step of the way, that you also have to be the ones to approve an extension of time.
Okay, thank you for that explanation. Also for Tory staff, I don't want to speak for the rest of the commission, but as far as for me, if it saves you any effort at all, I don't need a printed copy of the packet. I know it'll only save like $1.50 of printing cost, but I don't need a hard copy of the packet if that's okay with you. Also, I do have some paperwork that needs to get turned into City Hall. I've left it in my box. If you would mind currying that along for me, I would forever be thankful. And that's all I have.
I gave that to the city clerk's office, Daryl. You're good to go.
Oh, thank you, sweetheart. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, Commissioner Wright.
I have a question. In looking at the agenda, there was also the signs for Ben's and Tacos El Superior. Are those not happening tonight? Or were those on the consent agenda?
Yeah, those were consent, Commissioner Wright. So you did approve them.
Okay, I misunderstood. Okay. Jay already knows, but I'm buying a house outside of the city limits, and I'll probably be moving by next month. So this may be my last meeting. Once escrow closes, I'll be bringing a letter to Jay resigning the planning commission. But I've enjoyed doing this work with all of you, and it's been a fun learning experience to see how to see why our city looks as good as it does. So I want to thank all of you.
Okay, I'm sure I can speak for all the other commissioners that we've enjoyed having you on our commission, and you've added a lot, and I'm sorry to see you leave, but good luck with, your new house.
Well, thank you. And if it falls out of escrow, then I just gave you all these compliments for nothing, and I'll be back at the next meeting.
Okay. Well, our compliments still stand. Okay. So let's go on. Commissioner Hollingsworth, any comments?
Just to say to Commissioner Wright, we'll miss you. Sorry that you'll be leaving us, but good luck with your new place. And also,
thank you. Thank you.
And also, Tori, I know that Commissioner Christensen said he didn't need a printed copy, but I would like to still get a printed copy. Normally, I will pick those up. So I do like to get it both ways.
No problem.
Okay. And that's it. Thank you.
Okay. My only comment, I was wondering it looks like they've started grading for Panda Express. I don't know that they pulled their permits, and I was just wondering where they stand on their construction.
Yeah, they did. They did begin grading. They did receive their permit a few days ago, and so they were eager to get started. Everything you all approved that Panda, boy, I don't know, maybe
Right.
about a year ago now. They had been diligently working through the permit process, and everything had been on hold for a number of months, waiting on some property line stuff with Walmart, who was the underlying property owner. They now no longer own that lot. They sold it to Panda. So that's what had been holding us for a while. But yeah, they received their permit. They're off and running. Grading is starting. I don't have a detailed timeline for them, but they told us a while ago that they were hoping to be open in fall or early winter. So
Great.
hoping that'll happen. Yeah.
The only ingress into their parking lot will be from the Walmart lot. Is that correct?
Technically, yes. Yes. There is also, no, both driveways are from the Walmart lot. That's correct. Yes.
Okay. All right.
Commissioner White, Chairman
Yes.
White, this is Daryl. I do have one more question for staff, if you will indulge me.
Okay, yes.
Thank you. For staff, I know that the railroad has been doing a lot of improvements along their little corridor there. The Denison intersection, as you're going, let me get my direction straight, as you're going southbound, that I travel that quite a bit, and I pull a trailer. That is really goofy. That is not smooth. I don't know who has final approval of that, but it, just from a driving point of view, it seems faulty. And you can see where people have hit that curb, new curbs anyhow, but you can't drive a big trailer through there. Is that city purview, or I know it's not Caltrans?
Yeah, that's our project, actually. Commissioner Christensen, we've been working on that for about 5 years now. The railroad has been an extensive process to get their blessing. And you're not the first person to point out, I think you mean northbound direction, because the southbound is actually pretty open.
Okay.
But going...
Yeah, heading towards Ben's from the city.
That's northbound, yeah.
Okay.
I've received those calls. My comment to the public is it's not done. It's not even close to done. And the way that the sequence of construction works with the railroad requires us to build portions as close to the tracks as we can get, because once we get within 25 feet of the tracks, there are very heavy regulations for the execution of any construction work within that area. And so it's a sequencing issue. It is, as it turns out, that lane is a full 16 feet in width the entire way through there. It does have a little bit of a goofy jog to it. That was a product of the available railroad right-of-way in that area. And let me just attempt to briefly convince you that railroad right-of-way acquisition is fundamentally like an act of Congress. It's insanity.
I wouldn't doubt.
So we did our best. We're confident that when it's finished, that it won't feel quite as awkward. It's not going to be perfectly smooth because it's not a straight shot. There is a wiggle to it, but that we feel like most people will feel comfortable enough to navigate it. It will also be a major enhancement to the safety of all of our rail crossings through town.
Yes.
And we think pretty transformative. So a lot being redone. All the pavement you see around those tracks is being completely rebuilt. So right now it feels very hodgepodge because all you've got so far is a partial construction of the concrete medians. But before this is done, we're going to repave it all, bring it all up to grade. All the tracks are being relaid, meaning they're lifting the tracks up and constructing new concrete foundations under the tracks, leveling them all out. Anyway, we think people are going to be happy with the product when it's done.
Okay, thank you very much, staff. As long as it was done by design, not by somebody didn't read plans right, I'm very, very happy.
It was my design. I don't always read plans right, but that one's on me. So hopefully you guys like it. Anyway.
Thank you. Chairman White, I'm done.
Okay, yeah, but it's a coincidence. I drove that intersection today, and I'm really surprised. Well, besides the uneven pavement, which obviously, is under construction, but I'm surprised that that's a complete 16-foot lane there, because visually, the way it comes at an angle, you feel like you have to be very careful. It's really narrow, but that's interesting that it's 16 feet. So
yeah, it feels that way. I actually sent my guys out to measure it again after they built the concrete because I felt the exact same way. But it's per plan, and I'm convinced that when the pavement is brought up and leveled with the tracks and the concrete, it won't feel the same way. So let's hope I'm right.
Okay, I think that completes the Planning Commission announcements and reports, and I'll turn it over to Jay for any comments you might have. And I wonder if there's anything on the horizon coming up that maybe you could mention that.
Sure. I didn't have a formal report for you tonight. I do want to thank Commissioner Wright for his service on this commission, and I am definitely sad to see him go. He's been a really neat part of North Tehachapi, just one of those folks who took a piece of property in a neighborhood that a lot of folks would shy away from and chose to invest there. And I think that's the sort of individual decision making that really meaningfully helps change a town, build it into a place people want to live into. So I want to thank you for doing that, and hope you all the best, or wish you all the best doing that in Golden Hills. They could definitely use it too. So
thank you. Thanks.
Anyway, thanks for your service, and there's a small part of me hoping your escrow falls apart, but I'll leave that otherwise unspoken. So thanks for that. As far as other things that are going on, COVID has had one benefit for us, which is it allowed us to put our nose to the book in terms of moving fewer distractions during the day and getting these projects moved along. I can't count how many hours in the last 3 or 4 months on Sage Ranch. We have similarly spent large amounts of time on the address project, which you all have a preliminary approved. The public period for the M&D for that project has closed as of yesterday, I think. We did receive a couple letters. We'll process those and continue to move that project forward. We still have some big pieces of that master development plan to review that we haven't received yet, but we're making a lot of active progress on that project. We have reviewed the first draft of their tentative map as well. Just as a side note, it doesn't come to you all because it came to you all back in 2003. Maybe Charles will remember this, but there's a small tract at the south end of Robinson Street here in the downtown. Tract 6248, it constituted 29 lots, and that tract was approved by the Planning Commission back in 2003, and it's due to state regulation, has floated along ever since, and is nearing its expiration, but there is a new property owner who is telling us they wish to develop, and I am preparing a staff report for the City Council in order to enter into a reimbursement agreement with them to govern the construction of that project. So we'll see if it happens, but that's moving forward.
Is there any hope, any chance of Robinson being extended through?
Not as part of that project. It wouldn't be. Robinson would be extended to Holly, which would connect to Holly, which is southeast of that property. Holly is a boundary road there for the Pepper Tract, is what people typically call it. So that does get us about a block away from extending to Valley Boulevard. So, we'll see. But that project alone doesn't justify that extension. So, and then, we're seeing movement on some of the industrial developments that you all have approved. We're close to issuing permits for the industrial development on Goodrick. You might have noticed that one of the items tonight was their sign plan. So we're getting close there. Tacos El Superior tells us that they'll be finished with their remodel here within the month. So I'm looking forward to trying a new restaurant. So, things are still progressing. I'm seeing a little less of the speculative stuff that I was seeing before COVID. I think that's pretty predictably expected. But hopefully when COVID passes us by in a few months, we'll see a return to some of that economic investment that we were enjoying here prior to COVID. So that's probably all I've got for you.
And I noticed, I don't know the reason he pulled out unless it was financial, but the group that had bought the old Moose Lodge has now placed it on the market.
Yeah, I'm not sure if his
sales sign.
motivation's there. Good question. I don't know if it's, I feel like we were very clear with him about the steps it was going to take to remodel that facility. That's a classic Tehachapi example of a really neat facility that has gone so many years with neglected, frankly, that
Right.
that it's going to cost a lot of money to bring it back to some fruitful use. So COVID couldn't have hit at a worse time for something like that. But we'll see. Time mends these things, and again, I'm still going to be positive about our post-COVID world, at least from an economic perspective, and hoping that we're going to emerge from this with a desire to restore the economy.
And it's amazing how many of the smaller restaurants have just in the past week spent the money to add patios and fenced-in areas, and I notice even Gracians now has they added a fenced-in area, so that's good that it's allowing some of the smaller restaurants to stay in business. Yeah,
we're doing everything we can over here to support small businesses, particularly those hard hit by the state's actions and by this disease, and so yeah, we're feeling the same way, Charles, that we need to do everything we can to help these guys get through this.
Yeah. Okay, anybody else have any comments before we adjourn?
I have none.
Okay, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Darrell?
Is there a second?
Ken, I'll second.
Okay. Is anyone opposed? Okay, so it's unanimous. We're adjourning the meeting at 7:06.
Very good. Thank you all.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Hope to see you or talk to you next month.
Yeah, very good.
Bye.
All right. Goodbye.
Bye.